Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the FPL podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. So football is back and so is FPL, and what a week of action we have had so far. I'm joined as usual by two of the best FPL managers in the game. Firstly, Andy Green. Was all the double game week planning and plotting worth it so far, Andy?
It was, and then I sort of changed it a bit last minute, so now it's a bit kind of stuck in the middle. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it ends up once the remaining fixtures are played.
Okay. And we also have Adam Hopcroft. Adam, Villa played well against Sheffield United, I thought.
Played really well. Got a bit of luck with the goal that wasn't, but I thought we were the better team throughout. And I think, unfortunately, it's probably a game that I think we needed to win. So we'll see. We'll see how the game against Chelsea pans out.
Okay, so we were recording on Saturday evening. We don't know the results as yet of the Sunday or Monday games, as we wanted to get something out in plenty of time for the Tuesday evening deadline for Gameweek 31 plus. So with this in mind, we'll get straight into looking ahead to Gameweek 31 plus, including the players we are eyeing up, the best captain options, and our likely transfers and captains. For YouTube watchers, if you haven't subscribed to us yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen to ensure you don't miss anything. So straight into it, and we have a graphic of the Game Week 31 plus fixtures in front of us, which are Leicester versus Brighton, Spurs West Ham, Man United Sheffield United, Newcastle versus Aston Villa, Norwich versus Everton, Wolves versus Bournemouth, Liverpool versus Crystal Palace, Burnley versus Watford, Southampton versus Arsenal, and Chelsea versus Man City. So firstly, Adam, with what we've seen so far of the games played, what have we learned going into these fixtures? And is there anything that kind of stands out for you with these fixtures?
Yeah, I think there's certain teams that have started quite fast. I think probably the first thing that I would say is that in the first 20 minutes, half an hour of matches, has been pretty much nothing's happened. Teams have been slowly getting back up to speed. But I think the longer the matches go on, the fitter teams and in general, the better teams tend to take over. And that's why we've seen a lot of goals in the last half an hour. I think it was evident with United last night, really going against Spurs. I think with the substitutions having a huge impact as well, the likes of Pogba, Traore today. So I think looking at the fixtures for next week, teams that have impressed me, I thought we've just had the Wolves game. I thought they looked good. They look so fit, and I think probably they're used to playing a lot of games. So I think they will be a good one to target. I think Doherty, Jimenez, and then there's a few other options in Traore, Jota, etc. And I think against Bournemouth, who are losing 2-0 currently, I think that will really knock Bournemouth's confidence. So I think it's a good fixture for Wolves. I think Norwich were terrible against Everton, and I thought they would be. I had bought Ings in, and one of the reasons for that is I fancied Southampton to start fast because I think they're a naturally fit team. Yeah. They have a style and stick to it. And I thought Ings would get chances against Norwich, and I think with all their centre backs out as well, I think the likes of Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin could be people to target. I think City looks strong, but I think we haven't seen Chelsea yet, but I expect them to start well as well. So I'm trying to think of others. United looked good. I think particularly it was good watching Pogba and Fernandes together. Yeah. I actually really just completely enjoyed watching both of them, and I think Pogba showed what he was capable of. We're yet to see Liverpool, but it could be the game that they wrap up the league. So I think there's absolutely loads of great fixtures to target this week, and it's almost who do you pick, because there's so many good options for this game week in particular.
Agree. Okay, and Andy, any more thoughts from you on the fixtures?
Yeah, well, I think let's just talk briefly about the results we've seen. So yeah, I totally agree with Adam. Obviously, we've seen so many halftime 0-0s, and then as all the players start to tire, the key ones then start scoring. The subs obviously start coming on, and fresh legs, and we saw from Troy today, absolutely killed them when he came on. I mean, he probably would have done anyway from the start, let's be honest. But certainly the subs are making a big impact. So with that in mind. And I've got a bit of surgery to do to my team. But with that in mind, we talked briefly about it last week, where players like Barnes, Jota, Firmino, these are players who in a regular season get subbed off around the sort of 60 to 70 minute mark. And we've seen that again this week. We saw Barnes off at 65 and Jota off today at 64. For me, you're missing the key moments that you want these players to be on the pitch for. When players start to really tire, we saw Wolves today, they could have scored another one or two after that sort of time period. So we've got to bear in mind, I think players are going to play the bulk of the minutes. We want them in our FPL squads. So, right now, currently I've got Barnes and Jota in there, and I'm thinking I've got to get rid of one of them. So I rate them both as players, and the teams they play in should perform, but I just want the key players that are going to last close to, if not 90 minutes, for those games. In terms of fixtures, I'm probably just looking at which teams don't look like they've had a good kind of pre-season restart. So Norwich looked pretty weak. I thought West Ham pretty weak as well. So Spurs were up next against West Ham. I thought Spurs, clearly Man United I think should have won that game, but they must be a bit upbeat after that result. And Everton obviously play up against Norwich. There's some good, reasonably priced assets from there as well. And Wolves have Bournemouth up next. And, as Adam said, Wolves look on fire and Bournemouth are currently losing 2-0. So their heads are going to be down as well. So if I was going to target three teams straight off the bat, I'm going to be looking at Spurs, Everton and Wolves.
Yeah, I agree. I think my only other kind of observations I've had, so I agree with everything you've said. I think the last half an hour of games, I think you can see in nearly every game how stretched the game has become as well. It's like, it's almost like two heavyweight boxers going slugging in the 12th round trying to get the knockout, and teams are going from end to end to end. So I completely agree, like targeting players that will be playing in that last half an hour. So yeah, as you said, Barnes and Jota and players like that are potentially not the ones to maybe look at. Other observations, so Son was on corners and free kicks, which I don't think we saw much in the first half of the season. So even though Son's a good pick anyway, and he looked sharp, I thought, the other night against Wan-Bissaka, which will always be, a tough task. I think that kind of heightens his appeal more, and I think that Son looks an even better option than maybe even was. And I also think that the striker in the Southampton-Arsenal game, which I think last week we would have probably said Aubameyang would be the one to target, I think maybe Ings. So Southampton looked very, very sharp. Ings looked incredibly sharp. Arsenal's defence, again, conceded 5 in 2 games, 2 against Brighton. They're all over the shop, right? And they've just lost Leno as well. So if you're holding on to Ings, I'd hold on a little longer because I think it could be another tough day for Arsenal on Thursday night, personally. And I would just also add, I know it's fairly obvious to kind of say, but I watched the Man City game live and then I watched a bit of it back again. And Man City in that last half an hour or so, even after their own sending off, they looked absolutely superb. And I can see Man City just, ripping teams apart and scoring a lot of goals in the last half.
But the problem with Man City is, I agree with that. They were clearly, we expect them to win and against Arsenal. And the key goes back to the point we made earlier, where you want the players in the last 30 minutes. Now, which City players? Forget the kind of flip flop over Aguero and Jesus, because they're going to play every other game. But players like Bernardo Silva, maybe even Sané if he turns up, if they don't care about the injury risk. We want to be almost, it sounds crazy because normally we want to target players who start, but now we're thinking, right, okay, I want a City player that's going to come on at 60 minutes.
I think Mahrez is a really good option because if I'm with Mahrez, he either plays 60 or 70 minutes, which is fine, or he plays the last, half an hour or so. So I think a player like him is good. Or either that or he doesn't play at all. So in which case, you get your bench player. But yeah, it's roulette, but you're virtually kind of guaranteed every other game either getting 60 or 70 minutes off said player, which is obviously good, and you'd have that anyway, or the final 20. So, a player like Mahrez, Sterling, Aguero, for me, are still the three. Mind you, well, I say that, I haven't said De Bruyne yet. He's, he kind of goes without saying. I thought he was absolutely outstanding again.
He was, wasn't he? I think
so. Is there a case if you guys are on your wild card? I'm not, but Adam, I know you've still got yours in your pocket. Would you then consider, basis what we just said, would you then consider Aguero and Jesus, basis that you're going to get, one starting and the other one coming on at 30 minutes, and then the next game you're going to get? So in terms of that overall average score, you got that last 30 minutes free for all basically. I mean, Man City are flying at the end of games, and then you've got the guaranteed starter almost.
I think I can see where you're coming from on it, but I think that takes up far too much budget, and there's a lot of good value strikers at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm with Andrew in the sense I think City will finish strong, and I think they will be the best team over the last 9 games. So I think they're looking to set up for the finale of the Champions League. They've got pretty much a fully fit squad as well, so there's a lot of competition for places. So I fancy City to finish strong. The challenge is picking the right players, but I think particularly after game week 33, when they've played, after they've played Liverpool, these are 32 Liverpool, they've got an incredible run of fixtures, and it could just be that you pick 3 assets, and if they miss a game, they miss a game.
Stick. Yeah.
Just hope that they get enough double-digit hauls. I think Laporte could be a very good option, because I think with the 5 substitutions, what he might do is start him and take him off, so you're getting your points there. So I think Laporte could be a good option, and I think he was the end of last season as well. Aguero, if he's going for the golden boot, I think Mahrez. I like his price. I think he's good value. So I definitely think there's some merits in City. But at the moment, what I would say is there's loads of very good options available.
And final observation was when Pogba came on again. I'm a Spurs fan, so I was watching it from a Spurs viewpoint. United were just absolutely frightening when he came on. That kind of link up between Rashford, Pogba, Fernandes. Even Martial, who had a quiet game, should have scored. If not for a save. So I do think that Man United as well moving forward. I think as well Man United, at the end of games are going to score a lot of goals as well. So for me, Man United and Man City are 2 teams I'm definitely going to be targeting for the.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I mean, Man United's fixtures, right? They've got Sheffield United up next, and then after that, it's the Brightons, Bournemouth, Villas, Crystal Palace, West Ham's at the World.
Good run, haven't they? Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and Wolves actually just looking at the ticker, they've got Bournemouth and Villa next. Then they've got Arsenal at home, which is not a scary fixture from like an attacking view. So yeah, there's a lot of options. So moving on to captain options then. So we have a graphic up at the moment for our YouTube viewers, and it's a quick fire Hub Twitter poll. So the 4 options I put up on the poll were Salah or Mane versus Palace at home, Jimenez against Bournemouth, Son at home to West Ham, and Fernandes against Sheffield United. Out of those 4, there's been a bit of a landslide. Can Andy first? Can you guess which one would be a bit of a landslide out of those 4 options?
I would think probably Fernandes basis the performance.
Okay, and how about you, Adam?
It'll be the Liverpool guys, I think, to win the league. That's what I would guess.
Yeah, so I was quite surprised actually, and Salah and Mane took 61.7% of the vote, which surprised me because Palace are pretty sound defensively, I think. But anyway, Jimenez took 13.6%, Son took 11.4%, and Fernandes just 13.2%. But there was also a lot of shouts on Twitter for Alexander-Arnold, Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, Vardy, De Bruyne. So just kind of looking at that spread, we think it's a really, really open week. Adam, what are your thoughts on the captaincy for this week?
But in terms of my own personal team, it depends who's going to be in my team, because I'll either free hit or wild card, most likely this week, particularly after Leno's injury, otherwise I won't have a keeper. I think I'll be watching the Liverpool game closely, because the Salah v Mane is always tough. Yeah. The challenge with it is you try, number one, you've got to pick the right one, and then I think either of them could haul. So I'm interested in watching a game against Everton to see who looks the hungriest, sharpest. Are they working well together? I think that's probably, usually a Liverpool attacker at home with the motivation of being able to win the title is probably going to be where I'm going to go at the moment. But having said that, Fernandes he just looks brilliant, and I think he will. He just looks hungry to get involved in everything, and I think the addition of Pogba will help him. So I think he looked good, and I think with Sheffield United, you've got to remember, I don't think Henderson can play, and I think the only time they've conceded more than 2 was against Man United when Henderson couldn't play. And from watching Sheffield United the other day, Dean Henderson is absolutely brilliant, and should be England's number one keeper. Absolutely, probably the big difference between the teams when we played them the other day. So I think United will beat Sheffield United comfortably, and I think it could be 3. It could be like 3-0. So I think that could be a good place. But it's a difficult week because there's so many good options. I think most will go to based on ownership. I think most will go to Salah.
How about yourself, Andy? Any captaincy thoughts?
At the moment, I would have it on Salah or Mane myself. Just probably in terms of minutes, though, we were just discussing. I'd probably say Salah seems to have missed a few more training games than Mane did, so I'm expecting Mane to get more minutes than Salah. Although Golden Boot, etc., likely on pens if Milner's not starting. So it's that age-old question. I mean, we could have a podcast on that every week, I think. But I think, for me, it's Salah at the moment, although we'll see how the game progresses tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Yeah, it's tomorrow. And see, how they're looking. Maybe Salah gets his 65, 70 minutes tomorrow and then can play a bit longer versus Palace. But yeah, I think Salah clinches it for me.
Yeah, I'm not really. I tend to look at the fixtures a bit more, and I just naturally look at teams like Palace and Sheffield United, and maybe this is a failing of mine, but immediately I don't even kind of look at them for the captaincies. Maybe I say that is a failing of mine. Palace are currently winning away to Bournemouth, so immediately I'd put mine on Jimenez. I think it'll stay there. Obviously, he scored this afternoon away to West Ham. He looked very sharp. He's on penalties as well, which maybe like Mane isn't. He's playing a team in Bournemouth who are not very good. My only issue with Jimenez is I wonder whether they will rest him, which would be a killer because obviously they've got a game again on the weekend, and not every player is going to play all the time. So I think with Salah,
he played like 80. He played 80 odd minutes, didn't he? 81, 82 minutes, something like that.
Yeah. So I think the advantage this week with Salah and Mane is, they're not going to be resting them to kind of win the title, are they? And, so it may sway me. I'm my only other one. So Son, I think, for those who are getting in Son, or even Kane. So Kane was awful, but West Ham are even worse. And Son and Kane. And then there's Norwich, right? So Norwich were awful. And, a lot of people are still holding on to Calvert-Lewin. I think they're the options. I'm not massively keen on a Man City option. I think away to Chelsea is not the easiest fixture, and you don't know who's going to start. So I think I'm kind of torn between probably Jimenez and I've got Salah in my team. Okay, then so looking then at our team. So firstly, Andy, you've got your team on the screen. For our podcast listeners, could you just run through your team and tell us what your plans are?
Yeah, this was a team that was kind of, I think, wild card around 25, game week 25. So in goal currently, because Henderson's obviously not eligible to play against Man United, I have McCarthy. So glad he's back in the Southampton starting lineup. There's a few rumours that he might be out. So McCarthy playing Arsenal. Then I have Van Dijk and Alexander-Arnold as the two Liverpool defenders. And I have Doherty, however you say it. Obviously, played very well today, and happy to have him finally in my team. He was one of the transfers I made. I had Bowley in there over the lockdown period. I brought in Doherty, so quite happy to have him in there. I think he'll be in there for the rest of the season. And then the midfield, I have Fernandes, Salah, De Bruyne, and Barnes. Now, on paper, that sounds as good as it gets. As I said, I'm a little bit concerned with Barnes. Didn't look that sharp today. Is normally a 60, 70-minute player. Of course, he can be explosive. So, it's cheap at 6.1 as well. So also enables a more expensive striker, which I have in Rashford. I have Rashford, Jota, and Calvert-Lewin up front. Oh, I should mention my bench as well. I have Saka, who I thought looked really good today, and so should maintain his place on that kind of left wing role rather than a left back role. And then I have Stevens from Southampton and Egan from Sheffield United. So, I'm pretty happy with the team. I think the 2 weak links are Jota and Barnes, not because they're not great players and they can score a brace in any game. It's simply because, they don't seem to be the kind of players who can maintain a sort of 80, 90 minute, and they might even be rotated. Neto looked pretty good, so he could come in for Jota. With Barnes, they've got a couple of options, that Leicester attack can rotate. So, So yeah, I think I'll probably just keep this team going into 31 plus, and might play around and try and get rid of Jota. The one player I'm missing really here is Jimenez, but that's purely financial. I can't, unless I've freed up some money from maybe starting Saka and downgrading Barnes and then going up to Jota, or downgrading Rashford. But then I thought Rashford looked pretty good as well. With Pogba in there, Fernandes, obviously, he had his hands on the second penalty as well. So whether they're rotating that or it's just a case of, well, you scored once, the second one's mine. I don't know what the situation is there, and I don't really think Solskjaer has cleared it up with the team. I just think they decide on the day. So, I'm pretty happy to have Rashford. I think their fixtures after 31 are pretty sweet.
Yeah.
They've got Brighton, Bournemouth, Villa, Palace, West Ham, some pretty nice fixtures there. So, in terms of teams I'm going to be targeting, obviously Liverpool until the title's won. Man United, I've got 2 of them. I probably need a third Man United, maybe try and, sounds crazy, but maybe take De Bruyne out and go for Pogba or something. I don't know. I mean, we talked about this before, trying to have some fun with it. I did it this week, bringing in Jesus instead of Aguero. I think maybe
not much fun there, mind you.
not yet. Although it did enable Jimenez to come in, so we'll see. But no, I think maybe I'll try and go for the third Man United player in Pogba. I thought he looked really good, really dangerous.
You're going to be behind the sofa on Monday night.
Yeah, I wasn't that impressed when I saw Aguero come on and nearly score 2, and then obviously got the assist, which was just the final nail.
There can't be a worse player to watch hoping not to score than Aguero.
I know, and I've always said to Andrew as well, like, he's my favourite ever FPL player. But it's just one of those moments where I thought he wasn't starting. I expected.
I know, I get it.
But I know Jesus could come on with 30 minutes to go and smash ahead.
Could.
That's the prayer anyway.
So you're saving your transfer, Andy, and your captain is currently on Salah, and your vice is on Calvert-Lewin. Is that likely to stay?
Yeah, I mean, unless Salah looks pretty poor, in fact, very poor, or something crazy goes on. I do like, obviously, the fixtures.
Yeah.
If I had Jimenez in there, I'd probably consider him as well, probably for the vice. But at the moment, it stays as is.
Cool. Next, then we're on to Adam's team. So, Adam, could you read your team out first?
Yeah. So at the moment, I don't have a playing keeper, so I've got Leno and Henderson. So a bit of an issue there. I've got defenders. I've got Bowley, Trent, and Fernandes, and then I've got Lundstram and Baldock on the bench. Midfield, I'd go for 4. I'd have Fernandes, KDB, Mahrez, and Grealish with El Ghazi on the bench, and then I've got Ings, Aguero, and Jimenez up front. That's how it reads at the moment. I'm not going to have. I want to have very few of those players come Tuesday. I'm going to either free hit or wild card, leaning more to free hit because I don't know how much I've learned. I know we talked about some things, but I reckon another week's information will be key. And actually, with a free hit this week, I can have an absolute dud bench and get as many of those players in, because we've talked about a lot of the songs.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of good options this week. So what I'm thinking at the moment, players that I will definitely include, Doherty and Trent will be in there. Either Mane or Salah. I won't have both because I think it's very rare both haul in the same game. Like very, very rare. So I just think I've got to, if I'm going to captain one, that means the other one I'm not backing anyway. So I will pick one. Fernandes will be staying. I might ditch De Bruyne for Son. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. I think he's probably got a higher ceiling. I think the Chelsea City game will be fairly tight. And then forwards, I definitely fancy Calvert-Lewin, Jimenez, and one other. I think I agreed with what you said about Ings. I thought Arsenal looked a bit shaky, particularly at the back, and Ings he just looked brilliant against Norwich, and it was Norwich, but I think that goal, I think the way Southampton played and pressed, they look fit. They got a lot of energy. Arsenal come off the back of 2 tough games, so I know Southampton tend to struggle at home, but I think Ings could be a good shout. Rashford, I think, I thought he looked all right, but I don't know if he's worth the extra 1.4 million over Ings, particularly when I want to try and maximise my free hit. So
Is
that's
there a case of leaving the free hit for the last game of the season? Simply because you basically have a solid base there. Not that that really matters because you either got a free hit or a wild card. But I'd be tempted to kind of look at the wild card because teams like City have already played two, so I think we kind of Arsenal have played two. We know enough to probably avoid most of their assets. I think that last game of the season though can quite often throw up some crazy results. Sorry,
I see what you're saying. I get it, and I've seen a few other people mention it. I just think the last week's a lottery anyway, and if I haven't, I'll be prepared to take the odd hit to get have enough City versus Norwich on the last day. The problem I've got at the moment is I think game week 32. I watched Aubameyang today, and I actually thought he looked good. I thought he looked Arsenal's most dangerous player, and they've got Norwich in 32. So if I wild card, I wouldn't put Aubameyang in. So what my plan is at the moment, and this is what I'd been thinking, if I free hit this week, the week after I get Henderson back in goal, I'll do possibly a 4-pointer, but I'll move Aguero to Aubameyang and captain him. There isn't anything else that I look at that I think, if you look at the game week 32 fixtures, it's hard to see where the points are coming from. Spurs have got Sheffield United, Chelsea's a lottery who's going to start. You've then got City and Liverpool. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment. I don't need to, and then actually I can then go into game week 33 with a wild card and look at all the City assets. And I think because what tends to happen, it always happens at the start of the season. People wild card. We all think certain players are going to be essential, and it changes very quickly. Yeah. And I think things will change quicker. And I just think I want to attack the first few game weeks because I want to do what I can to my overall rank, and then try and see it out towards the end of the season and try and put myself in a position to win mini leagues. So I think the free hit. I think the upside of the free hit this week is probably going to be the high, because just looking, there's so many good fixtures. It's probably the highest that there will be outside of obviously a double game week. And if I look at it, I could have double Everton. I could have, United have got an okay fixture. Liverpool, Wolves. I think they've all got incredible fixtures. Yeah. And also as well, I think I just want to really attack it. I think wild carding for me, it just seems too early because I think there are going to be some injuries. I just think I can just see a few things happening over the next couple of game weeks. So I have thought about it, but I think I'm going to hold off on the wild card at the moment.
Yeah, I think like looking at the fixtures, we just, as we discussed earlier, the fixtures are, a mint and primed, aren't they? For 5 or 6 teams, and you can easily imagine if things go as planned. Big score there, Adam, and then as you say, you can wildcard into Man City's fixtures and see wildcard into Aubameyang for Norwich or wherever it is. So and you get more information. So no, I think it's a really good plan. I'm very jealous actually that you've got all these options, and we did a when to use your second wildcard special. I think around about game week 24. One thing we didn't plan for was a global pandemic and a pause of football, whereas if we had, maybe Andy and I may have held off our wildcards a bit more, but you live and learn. Finally then, looking at my team, so I've got Pope in goals, I've got Alexander-Arnold, Maguire and Saiss, I've then got Fernandes, Barnes, Salah and De Bruyne, and I've got Jimenez, Rashford and Calvert-Lewin at front. I've also got a bench of Henderson, Mount, Holgate and Lundstrom. So looking at my team, I'm actually really happy and content with my team. If I hadn't have played my free hit this week, I would have got points from Fernandes and Jimenez and Saiss and wherever else. But that's what it is. But looking at my team, I'm really happy. The main difference between mine and Andy's team is, I think, so I've got the more expensive Rashford and Jimenez, whereas Andy's probably got the more expensive Doherty and Van Dijk there. I think that's how you can afford those, Andy, and that's how I can't. So that's kind of the key difference in our teams. But I'm tempted with the fixtures I've got this week. So I've got 9 players of the 11 are all playing at home with nice fixtures, and the other 2 are Calvert-Lewin away to Norwich and Kevin De Bruyne. So I'm tempted to hold a transfer, get more information, and then next week, use the 2, maybe even take a hit to set my team, because my structure at front probably isn't the best, so I haven't got that Aguero, Aubameyang sort of placeholder at front at the moment. But I do like Saka at Arsenal as a cheap 5th who can allow me an upgrade. So that's my kind of thoughts at the moment. But I'm happy
So
with
what
my
would you
team.
do? Downgrade either Mount or Barnes?
Probably taking into account Andy's point, which I think is a very, very good one. I think Chelsea, are trying to hold on to the top 4. I think probably Mount is a better option going forward than maybe Barnes. Leicester they're reasonably safe now with Champions League. Barnes may get taken off early, so Barnes down to Saka would release some like 1.5 million, which could then potentially enable me. Maybe I'd need to do one more move, and maybe not a -4. But we don't know, right? Because if Aubameyang plays this next game again against Southampton, it means then he's played 3 games in 6 days. Will he play a 4th game in 9 or 10
Good
days?
point.
So
Your man could get a start, couldn't he?
So he could. So this is where I think holding the transfer back, as I think we're all doing it in various ways, is probably, and for our watchers and listeners, I think it's probably a very wise thing to do. Because over this next week, players are capable of playing 1, 2, 3 games in a week, right? Players are probably not capable of playing 4 games in 9 or 10 days, and then there'll be a 5th and then a 6th straight after. So I think we'll learn a lot in the next week around rotation and things, and the players will likely kind of get rotated and things. So but Nketiah then at a 4.4, if Aubameyang starts midweek, I just can't see him starting at home against Norwich, which means Nketiah.
No, I hear you. They've got Martinelli as well, who hasn't featured for some reason.
No. Well, I think, for me, so Nketiah, he started against City, the manager bigged him up and he brought him on earlier. So for me, he's ahead of him at the moment. And I can't see him playing Martinelli ahead of Nketiah in a Plymouth home match against Norwich. I think that would be a big disservice. Nketiah, who did all running against Man City, to kind of give the Plymouth fixture to Martinelli. But
well, the one area we've all probably got, minus Adam, because he's on his free hit and possibly a wild card, is we've all probably got a lot of funds stored up in Liverpool players here. Probably a lot of the listeners do as well. Everyone's got one of Salah, Mane. Some people have 2.
Yeah.
Most people have either Trent or Van Dijk or Robbo or a combination of those. Now, when they win the league, it's inevitable, right? So when they win the league, you get the fixtures that you really want those Liverpool assets to perform. The captaincies are 33 versus Villa, 34 versus Brighton, possibly not the Burnley one, and then the last game versus Newcastle. But I just can't see those key players playing. I mean, Salah could beg for it to go for the Golden Boot, but I can't see. I know Klopp's already said he's going to play the youngsters, so you've got the likes of Clarkson coming through, Elliott coming through. Those sort of players could feature. So
also
you've got an easy access to funds.
Yeah, no, that's a fair shout. Salah down to Saka would release about 9 million.
You've got a lot of money there.
There it goes. Yeah. Okay, so finally, chaps, we have had some questions off the Twitter world, so let's get into them. If any of our YouTube watchers want to ask us questions for the future, just post them on the website and we will answer them the following week. So firstly, question from Shiva FPL. One, is Martinez at 4.2 a good choice as keeper on a wild card? Andy, can I ask you that one?
For save points only, I would say.
Yeah, at the moment. Yeah.
I don't think Leno's coming back in. Let's be honest, this season. So, in terms of save points, you're probably looking at, they do play Norwich. What was it? 32 plus? 32 plus? Yeah, 32 plus by Norwich. So there's a possibility of a clean sheet there. Although, the likes of Pukia, as I said before, are still fighting for their, future, whether it's at Norwich or elsewhere. So, I mean, listen, he's cheap as an enabler, a second keeper for sure, but don't expect a lot more than save points.
Agree. Adam, can I ask you, is Vardy worth 3.5 million over Barnes for Leicester cover?
Yes, in my opinion. I think he's going to play more. I think you'd probably be more likely to captain him. He's motivated for the Golden Boot. I think he's done it season after season as well. So, yeah, definitely. I think that for me, it's a sort of typical cover question. If you're looking at Barnes, you've got to compare him with Mount and other players, Sarr, etc. So rather than comparing him with Vardy, in my opinion.
I'm not keen on Vardy. I just think he's just turned 33. I think it's the same kind of thing as Aubameyang, right? He's not going to play every single game. I think it's a lot of money to have up front, but that's just a personal view. And Andy, views on a Jota Jimenez double up.
Yeah, same with the Vardy Barnes situation. I'd stick with Jimenez over Jota. Although the fixtures are good, so if you think Jota's going to, tear it up in the first 60 odd minutes, I just feel that Jota's going to be rotated. They've got so many options. We saw there today. They look dangerous, but he might not start every game. So I would just stick with Jimenez. And actually, I think Traore looked like I'd rather have Traore for 60 minutes than Jota for 60 minutes.
He's got fantastic hair as well, haven't he? Question off at mbison22. So Adam first. So due to low team value, I have to make one of the following unenviable sacrifices on wildcard. So Jimenez to Jota, or Son to Ali, or Alexander-Arnold to Van Dijk. Which is the least worst downgrade, do you think?
I don't like Son to Ali. So who's the other one?
Jimenez to Jota.
I think Trent to Van Dijk, because I think Van Dijk is most likely to start the majority of the matches.
Yeah,
so that's what I would go with. I think he's due a goal as well. He's always so I don't think there'll be and if Trent hauls, it's usually because Liverpool have kept a clean sheet. So yeah, I'll go with that.
It sounds like all three of us agreed on that one. Question from Ian Parrin at Planet Sky. Henderson Leno bench boost owner aiming to wildcard in 33. Would you change plans to wildcard now, take a hit for a keeper, or just accept a 10-man team?
Without seeing his whole team, it's really difficult to answer. But if he's going to be wildcarding in the near future, I wouldn't take a hit for a keeper. The best that's going to happen is you get that hit repaid. So for me, out of the options, it would either be just lose a keeper for the week, or wildcard now, but that's purely team dependent.
Anything there, Andy?
Well, he's probably got one free transfer unless he's already used it, which should be unusual during the middle of the game week. So you could look at Leno, downgrading Leno to someone for that. I don't know why he's
that's a good point.
To take a hit. I don't know. We've not seen his team, so I wouldn't take a hit for a goalkeeper now.
Yeah, and I think as well, it was saying that don't change all your wildcard plans just for one keeper. That's why they make a transfer or play with 10 rather than change your whole team for one player. Question off at LFC Bootroom. With Pope more or less on the beach, which other keepers could be set and forget for the remainder of the season? Patricio, Andy. Keepers for the
I think you got to look at. I think you got to look at the fixtures. So Patricio. I know De Gea had a terrible game versus Spurs. That should have been a save all day long. And I think we discussed it before. I think Henderson obviously will take his place, but for looking at the fixtures, I think Man United and Wolves have the best fixtures. So I'll be looking definitely at Patricio. I still like Sheffield United. I thought they look pretty solid. So obviously he doesn't play Man United, but defensively they look, and they only really have a first team, so there's not a lot of rotation. Obviously they've got a couple of injuries or niggles in O'Connell and Fleck, but their defensive unit is pretty sound and pretty solid. So I'd stick with Henderson, Patricio, and if you want to take a risk, then you go with the fixtures in De Gea.
Okay, a question from.
I'd look at Ben Foster. I think Watford look really solid defensively. They limited Leicester to any clear-cut chances. They're decent at home. They've got something to play for. He's quite good on bonus as well. So I think under Pearson they've been fairly solid defensively. So Ben Foster, is 4.9 million. He might be the keeper I go to in my wild card, I think.
Good shout. Thank you, Adam. Question from @Danny_Wihild. It just says, who would the ideal strikers be? So if you had to pick an ideal front three for the next few weeks, who would your front three be? Adam, can I ask you first?
I think Jimenez, definitely. If I was on wild cards, I would look at Jimenez, Ings, and Aguero would be the three that I would go for. A bit different, but obviously that's just looking at just strikers.
Sure. And you, Andy?
Well, definitely Jimenez. I'd probably go. Well, I've got to go with the fixture. So I'd probably go Jimenez, Rashford, and Vardy.
Okay. I think I would go Jimenez, Rashford, and I'm pretty torn between Calvert-Lewin and Aguero, but I think I would probably say Aguero just because Man City just score loads of goals all the time. And
you guys are saying that because I don't have them. That's what it is. You guys are saying that.
I haven't got it for this week. Yeah.
To be fair, when I answered the question, I wasn't even thinking a budget. I was just like, if I could have three strikers, out of what I've seen so far from the games, the three that I thought have looked the most impressive were Ings, Jimenez, and Aguero.
Fair enough. And final question from @Albianista3. I need to replace Leno and have 5 million available. Who would you suggest? So no, Adam thinks Foster, I think.
Go for, yeah.
And Andy, you said.
Well, all the ones I just discussed were over 5 mil.
Over 5, yeah.
I mean, Patricio's 5.2. Pope's your other one, 4.9. I mean, there's Palace as well. Guiata's 5 mil.
Is he 5?
5 exactly, yeah. But no, there's not a lot of selection there. I mean, you're probably best going with either Foster or the Palace goal.
Yeah. Okay, so that is it for this podcast. So, Andy, where can people get hold of you?
On Twitter, FPL Fancy Guide.
Okay, and Adam?
Hopcroft 13.
Wonderful. And my Twitter handle is @Fergie222. So this video recording will be on the Fancy Football Hub YouTube channel with the podcast versions available in all major podcast libraries. If you liked what you watched, please like and remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And if you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. It helps us increase our rankings, increase our listens and watches, which in turn allows us to continue to improve the production of our work. It also makes sure you don't miss anything. And until the end of the season, it also enters you into a random draw to win a free annual premium Fantasy Football Hub membership, so it is well worth doing. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok are @FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is @FFH Podcast. So please follow and feel free to ask any questions at any time. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you will find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals, and much, much more. If you fancy a 7-day trial, either click on the link in the description, click on the link appearing now above my head, or go to the website and click on the bright red free trial button. On Wednesday evening, Fantasy Football Hub, we're bringing you FPL Wednesday Live, as we stream live to provide FPL commentary for the 4-6 p.m. games from this channel. So join us from 5:50 p.m. for that. With some big games on, it should be a cracker. Remember to subscribe and set alerts so you don't miss it. We are determined to bring our watchers and listeners our thoughts ahead of each game week deadline. So during this period, we will also be recording later in the week, preparing for the following deadline. So you'll get 2 podcasts a week from us for the remainder of the season. Look out for our Game Week 32 plus preview podcast later this week. So in the meantime, we hope you have a good week and make sure that you make that early Tuesday 5 p.m. deadline for Game Week 31 plus. Good night all.